Jesus, if you are to grow larger, we must grow smaller and less important. Help us want more for you, less for ourselves, and may we ever always hunger to sit at your feet and learn from you. Amen.
Amen.
So a 7-year-old boy arrived at the pearly gates and was greeted by St. Peter, who said, "Mikey, we have heard a lot about you, but heaven is filling up fast. So to get in, you're gonna need to take a test." Mikey replied, "I was never really good at school, but I'll do my best." St. Peter replied, "There's only 3 questions. The first is this one: how many days of the week start with a T?" Mikey immediately replied, "That's easy, today and tomorrow." Eyes wide open, St. Peter replied, "That wasn't really the answer I was looking for, but I'll count it in." Next question: how many seconds are in a year? Mikey scrunched up his face for a minute and then replied, "There are 12 seconds in a year, same as the number of disciples." St. Peter, confused, replied, "How in heaven's name did you get that answer?" And Mikey replied, "Well, there's January 2nd, February 2nd, March 2nd, April 2nd. St. Peter was surprised again, said, "Not the answer I had in mind, but you're right." Final question: what is God's first name? Mikey smiled broadly and exclaimed, "That's so easy, it's Andy." While an exasperated Peter replied, I get, Mikey, how you got the first 2 answers, but when did you decide God's name was Andy? And Mikey replied, "Well, it's in my favorite hymn. Andy walks with me, Andy talks with me. Andy tells me I am his own." Of course, Peter had no choice. He had to open up the gates and let him in. Read through the Gospel of Mark and notice a pattern of walking and talking, a pattern of journey. See how Mark always marks where people are on the map. John is at the Jordan River. Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee. The disciples went to Capernaum. Jesus and his men went to the synagogue. Jesus went off in the dark to pray. Jesus traveled through Galilee. These are only the GPS positions of Mark chapter 1. So by chapter 9, where we are today, Jesus has been walking, talking, telling his followers they are God's own for 2.5 years. And now, more than halfway through Mark, Jesus is intent on getting his disciples to see that he is on a new path, going to a new place, physically and spiritually. Last week we heard how Jesus and his disciples were way far to the north, nowhere land, in Caesarea Philippi. And we heard then Jesus tell for the first time that his death was imminent. Today, changed. They are passing through Galilee. That's code for on the way to Jerusalem, on the way to the cross. So we get the exact same lecture we got last week. Jesus will be captured, killed, will rise again. Now remember, we heard this last week, the first time Jesus shared this bad news with his disciples, it did not sit well, especially with Peter. Peter pulled Jesus aside and attempted to reroute his rabbi, explaining this new theological location Jesus wanted to pursue, one of suffering, service, sacrifice. That was not the trip Peter was signed up for. So here we are again, round 2. Again, Jesus gives the "my end is coming" lecture. And as always, as they are throughout all of Mark, the disciples are completely clueless. But we'll give them credit, at least in the past, when they haven't understood what's going on, they've at least tried to understand. They've asked questions. What do your parables actually mean? Teacher, we're drowning in this boat. Do you not care we're perishing? Jesus, how are we supposed to feed all these people who've come to hear you preach? But remember, they just witnessed the worst verbal slam Jesus ever gave. "Get behind me, Satan," to Peter, which he got simply for expressing his own views. So this week the disciples, they settle on a new approach. Here it is. The tactic of doing nothing. This is a brilliant plan. We all employ it from time to time when we encounter a problem that to us seems unsolvable. An extremely negative, difficult, or even unstable person crosses our path. An experience we don't know what to do with erupts. And rather than think we can impact the situation, work for a solution, we just give up. I don't have a clue, so I'm just not going to do anything. This is who the disciples decide to be. Let's not challenge Jesus. Let's not ask him any questions. Let's not show how inwardly stumped we are. New motto: silence is golden. Note this trend continues for the rest of the reading. When Jesus cracks open a new topic, what were you arguing along the way? The disciples are at least smart enough to keep their lips zipped. Let's not unpack the thoughts rolling around in our heads. Jesus, we're wondering who gets to be your VP. Jesus, we were wondering what perks we're going to get from aligning ourselves with you. Jesus, we're actually spending a lot of our spare time fantasizing about how we're going to hit the holy jackpot of messiahship, power, glory, privilege. I find it interesting that Jesus has been walking and talking and telling everybody how they belong to God all through Mark, how he's been constantly on the move. But today, halts, stops, sits, sitting. He physically assumes the posture of all teachers back then, that physical cue they gave, which meant, listen up. What I am about to say is important. Hopefully, Jesus' disciples did what Jesus did back when he was a child in the temple, what Mary did when her sister Martha behaved like a whirling dervish. Hopefully, the disciples chose to stop too, and to sit at the feet of their rabbi. And not only sit, but actually commit time, energy, and the most important thing, their will. Hopefully they looked into Jesus' eyes, stopped worrying about themselves or what others thought, broke from plotting their next move on how to be popular or successful, important. Hopefully the disciples stared at that object lesson Jesus put in his lap. A child who back then had no status, no power, no clout. Hopefully it made them think, perhaps this is the way forward. Perhaps it's time to reroute, to be more about the ways of that child, more loving, more vulnerable, more trusting, more blatantly truthful, more giving, more joyful. Perhaps I need to sit with Jesus more to help me remember what matters most. You know, a very worried bishop once told Pope John XXIII his immense responsibilities were causing him to lose sleep. Pope John immediately replied, "Angelo, don't make yourself so important." Lord, help us remember what matters most. Not our placement in this world, but our proximity to you. May this church and we ourselves walk and talk, tell your gospel, most importantly, sit and rest all we are in and on you. Amen.
Amen.